I'm going to read this in full. It has to do with Cam Newton. And I feel like when we talk about Cam, we don't want to leave anything out because a lot of people are fired up about this idea of Cam
Yep.
returning. Here's what you wrote, Greg. I hate to say this, but I now think the Patriots are talking themselves into bringing back Cam, or at least that Bill will, but not as the starter, as part of a room. They really think his surrounding cast was a big problem.
Yeah, this one was tough, Nick. And it's just, the more I talk to people around the team, the more I'm trying to figure out how I would term, hearing these people talk about Cam Newton and that they just don't dismiss him. It's just very odd, Nick. And it seems to me that I think they have some idea that Bill loves Cam, which we've talked about going back into the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
We talked about, like, you guys don't understand how good his leadership is behind the scenes. They love him. They can't say enough things about his leadership and what he brought behind the scenes. And that's going back to into the season last year. But the way they talk, the way they don't dismiss him, it's almost like they think, well, this is almost fait accompli where Bill is going to bring him back. And in that they've sort of talked themselves into it. And now they're justifying it, because I'll bring up, all right, fine. I understand all the intangibles, he brought. I understand he has some allure to other players in the league. But at the end of the day, he doesn't win pre-snap enough for this scheme. And number two, he throws the ball like he's throwing a javelin. And that doesn't work in this scheme. And the way things get explained away to me is, well, if, Bill realizes we didn't give him anything last year. And if we had this X, Y, and Z, then Cam would have been better. We could coach Cam to do X, Y, and Z. And the more I listen to this stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to happen. Like Cam is going to be back here. I think people are going to freak out. But I don't think nobody's talking about him bringing him back as a starter. I think you're looking at a scenario where it's, say, a Gardner Minshew, which I think they are open to. Minshew, Cam Newton, and a draft pick. And it doesn't necessarily have to be one of the top 5 that you hear. I think the Patriots think there's a lot of depth in this quarterback class. And I think they're excited about some of these quote-unquote secondary guys.
Interesting.
In this draft. So you have Minshew, Newton, and a draft pick, say, as the worst case scenario for this team. I think they think they'll be okay with that group.
Do you think they'd be okay?
I don't understand the point of Newton. I just don't like. You want to go get Minshew because he's the best available. I think he'd be good here. I think he'd be exciting. He'd make the Patriots a lot more exciting to watch. I think he would be a good fit here. And then you pair him with a draft pick. I think that's a plan. I don't understand the need for Cam. I think it's a charity case. It's, you did right by us. You're talking nice about us, so we're going to bring you back in the fold. That's the way I feel about it. I don't know how you feel, Nick.
Let me see how the rest of it falls. Bringing back Cam as the starter is a disaster. It's an unmitigated disaster.
Yes.
I don't think he's one of the top 32 quarterbacks that will be out there in the league. And I know he said during his whole, podcast there, I Am Athlete, last week, 2 weeks ago, that, he feels like he's one of the best 32 quarterbacks. I don't think he is right now. And I think when you look at the quarterbacks that will be coming in via the draft, it's a really hard case to make where that guy should be starting. I mean, maybe you could argue that he should be battling Nick Foles or Mitchell Trubisky if Chicago brings those guys back, But overall, I don't have a huge problem if Cam's the backup because I could justify Cam being one of the top 50 quarterbacks in the league, not one of the top 30. But I could say, well, okay, top 50. Let me know who's going to be the other guy. If you bring in a Minshew and Cam's the backup and Minshew wins the job and then you have a young developmental guy, I don't think that's the worst thing. It all depends
better
on
than last year.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on the options, right? And that's really what we're left with. I mean, you're not going to get Zach Wilson or Trevor Lawrence. I don't think it's likely you get one of the top 4 guys unless one of them falls to you at 15 and you like him so much that you're going to draft him there. we look at these other names, it is quite possible, if not probable, that San Francisco doesn't make a move and Jimmy G is stuck there. And you start to look around, and there aren't as many options for the Patriots, with Stafford swatting them away and him going to LA, with Goff going to Detroit and with Wentz going to Indy. You have these moves. I don't think they're going to be in on Watson. Unfortunately for them, the Jets and Miami might be the two best possibilities for a Watson trade. But I don't think, and I don't think you believe, that either team is going to work with the Patriots to give them the quarterback of the freaking future. So I don't think Sam Darnold would be available to them. Tua is not going to be available to them. The second pick and third pick, I don't think, will be available to them. So when you start to look at the options, given how the rest of the market falls, the idea of Minshew, Cam, and a developmental prospect, I don't think is the worst thing in the world.